Hi, this is Jessica Engel from the Relationship Center. Today we are going over a regulating resources map. This is the fourth video in this series on polyvagal informed approaches to therapy. As such, I recommend completing any exercise in this series immediately before a therapy session or actually in a therapy session, even with your clinician. Make sure that you have the support you need if any of the survival states that we're talking about start to get activated. Regulating resources are tools that we use to regulate our nervous system to get out of a survival state back into ventral vagal social engagement. Um, Regulating resources are ideally things that we're using every day that also help us maintain a ventral vagal calm, connected state when we are in one. Many people have areas where they use regulating resources really well and other areas where they may have a lack of tools. And so this exercise is really designed to help you see the tools that you are already using and the places where you might actually be able to build up your toolbox, which is good news because there are actually a lot of tools out there to help you regulate your nervous system, which in turn will allow you to be more resilient and more connected with others in your day-to-day life. So let's go ahead and get started on this map. As you can see, it's a very similar design to the other maps that we have created. You're going to grab a piece of paper. You can also do this on your computer. And that paper, you're going to go ahead and split into three sections to represent ventral vagal, sympathetic, and dorsal vagal. Okay, these three different states. If you don't know what those are, go back to the other videos that I've created to make sure that you really understand all of the context behind that. And what we're going to do here is you're going to go ahead and start with the survival state that you spend more time in, whether that's sympathetic fight or flight or dorsal vagal shutdown or collapse. You're going to choose a color, and the color doesn't necessarily, or it doesn't represent the state itself. It's going to actually be the color for things I can do on my own. You see that up at the top of the map. So this means regulating resources that I can use alone. I don't need another person to use this tool. So choosing a color to represent anything that you can use for self-regulation in any of the states. So you're going to use this along the left side of the paper. And in a moment, you're going to choose a different color for things you can do with others, co-regulation, and that's going to be along the right side of the paper. So choosing that state that you're most in terms of survival states and using that pen to write on the left side of that box, I want you to go ahead and write down any of the regulating resources that you use to move out of that state back into ventral. I'm going to give you some examples to get your mind working on this. For moving out of sympathetic using self-regulation, some examples of this might be walking, running, or shaking the body, breath work, or a cold splash of water to the face. Okay. And self-regulation for moving out of dorsal vagal into ventral, examples of this are taking a warm bath, using a weighted blanket, or doing some gentle stretching or rocking. So go ahead and write down the self-regulation tools that you use to get out of this particular state. I'll give you a moment for that. I'm going to move on to the next portion of this particular box or state. And I probably haven't given you enough time to write down all of your tools for that self-regulation portion. So feel free to pause me if that's the case. Go ahead and pick up another pen, choose a different color to represent the things you can do with others to move out of this particular survival state back into ventral. Okay, so on the right side of that paper, you're going to describe the things that help you move out of that state. Let me give you some example of co-regulation tools for each of the states. So sympathetic, an example of co-regulation Could be partnered movement, things like playing catch or dancing or sparring. It could be someone mirroring you and gradually slowing down with you. Okay. That could be in something like drama therapy. It could also just be in conversation. We often mirror one another in conversation. Um, in dorsal vagal, some examples of co-regulation would be sitting quietly in the presence of another person, not needing to engage if you don't want to, or being offered soothing touch if that's welcome, like a hug or a hand on the back. Go ahead and write down the tools that you have at your disposal to co-regulate out of this particular survival state back into ventral. Beautiful. We're going to go ahead and move along. Feel free to pause me if you need more time. You're going to go to the other survival state that we haven't worked on yet, the one that you're in less. You're going to go back to that first color. And on the left-hand side of the box of this particular state, you're going to write down more things you can do on your own to get out of that state back into ventral. I'll give you a few more examples just to help jog your thinking. So for sympathetic, self-regulation might look like writing out thoughts rapidly, journaling very quickly, and then tearing the page up. And it also could be speaking and allowing yourself to be expressive in the way that you're speaking. Um, and that one is still self-regulation if you're allowing yourself to do it in the privacy of your own space. Um, Dorsal vagal self-regulation might include looking at photos or listening to a favorite song. And it could also be noticing a small thing, just one small thing in the environment, something that's a color, a texture, or a sound. Go ahead and write down any of your self-regulation tools for this particular state. Beautiful. Moving on to the right side of that particular box, that particular state, we're going to move on to co-regulation. You're going to move back to that other color that you originally chose, okay, for the second side, for that right side. And let me give you some examples of co-regulation for each of these states again. So for sympathetic, co-regulation might look like talking things through with a calm, grounded friend who really validates your urgency, but also helps you to pace. Or things like playful roughhousing or sports with agreed boundaries. Dorsal vagal co-regulation might look like being with somebody else who speaks really slowly, very predictably, and helps you orient towards the present, like we often do in therapy, or sharing silence with someone who feels safe, maybe watching something humorous together. Go ahead and write down any of the self-regulation tools that you have, or rather, co-regulation tools you have for this second state. Beautiful. So we're going to move on to ventral vagal, that top section, and you're going to pick up the first color that you used for that left-hand side of the paper for the self-regulation tools. I'm going to give you some examples of self-regulation tools for ventral. And remember, with using these tools, it's really about maintaining a ventral social engaged state. Okay. So examples of self-regulation in ventral might include journaling gratitude, singing, humming, or toning, moving, yoga, dance, mindful walking, or really savoring food or other sensory experiences like warmth or a nice deep breath. Go ahead and write down your regulating resources for ventral. Okay, and let's move on to co-regulation in ventral, what's going to allow you to maintain that state. Some examples might be sharing humor or eye contact with a friend, gentle physical touch like a hug, a hand squeeze, sitting back to back, a tuned conversation where someone listens with warmth or maybe some playfulness, and singing together or moving in sync, walking, dancing, anything like that. Go ahead and write down your co-regulation tools for ventral. Beautiful. Great work. Now that you have your map created, I want you to take a look at left side versus right side. You have one color on the left and one on the right. And the reason for this is that we really wanted to help you highlight where you might have more or less, more or fewer tools, however I say that. So you may be better at self-regulation, and you may actually struggle a bit with co-regulation, or vice versa. You can also look at states to see, gosh, I really don't have any tools to move out of dorsal, for example, or sympathetic for that matter. You might see, wow, I don't really know how to maintain a nice, happy, connected state once I'm in it. Again, this is good news because any space you see on that paper means there's a whole world of regulation tools out there to discover. I recommend working with your therapist to develop some of those. There are a lot of really beautiful polyvagal informed resources out there. I highly recommend anything by Deb Dana, who really pioneered this field. She's got card decks. The maps that you're seeing that we're going over come from her materials. So, really, any of her books are also really great for picking up more resources. Okay, that completes our polyvagal series. Thanks so much for watching all the way to the end. You are a champion, a hero. I'm dancing with you. Woo! And if you randomly found this video on the internet and want to figure out how to do more work like this, you're welcome to contact my team. You can find us at relationshipcenter.com. Take care.